Dear colleagues, this is day 127 of heroic resistance of Ukraine against Russian aggression. Our guest today is Volodymyr Syvokhip, Director General of Lviv Philharmonic, and Wassyl Slipak, brother of Wassyl Slipak, founder of Wassyl Slipak Foundation, and Denis Litvinenko, the soloist of Lviv National Philharmonic. Thank you for visiting us. Let's begin with Mr. Volodymyr. So this is the 6th International Music Marathon in memory of Wassyl Slipak that took place in Lviv. Why was it special this year? Good afternoon, dear guests. Yesterday, on the 29th of June, we commemorated the 6th year after the tragic death of the soloist of Paris National Opera, volunteer, participant of Russian-Ukrainian war, hero of Ukraine, and the prominent Ukrainian opera singer. And we organized the 6th International Music Marathon in memory of Wassyl Slipak. Why marathon? Back then, 6 years ago, together with Orest and other colleagues, we initiated this idea, and I believe that I came up with the word marathon because marathon, it's sports competition, old Greek sports competition. Marathon is a lengthy run, timely run. And when we were talking about art, we thought that it should be like marathon. It should not be limited by time or space. And it depends on us how long this marathon is going to last, and it'll also depend on our historic memory, our resilience, and our strengths. It's been 6 years of this international music marathon. Hopefully and luckily everything is all right, both with our memory, with our strengths, with our resilience. The first two were during the pandemic. There were certain restrictions. This year, when the war broke out, I talked to Orest Slipak, who came from Kyiv to Lviv, and we talked every day what we should do in order to organize this marathon this year. And this is the memory of Wassyl, and we cannot change the date. Therefore, Ukrainian Lviv Philharmonic offered us supportive shoulder. We invited academic symphonic orchestra, and we also invited ensemble called California and also Nazar Savko. We tried to put together things that normally do not feature together. So that was pop music, orchestra, and classic music. But all this was in memory of Wassyl, the singer, because this was the vocal program. Plus, we dedicated it to Ukraine that is going through war right now. There were lots of historic, patriotic songs. There were military songs, marches in memory and dedicated to Ukrainian army. The program was successful. We started it on the 26th of June. We started it in Halych, so there is a fortification structure there. It was very symbolic because Halych, this is the place of birth of King Danilo. And there was this program about Wassyl, dedicated to Wassyl, and later the program was presented in Lviv Philharmonic. Now I'd like to give the floor to Orest Slipak, brother of Wassyl Slipak. Why we have to remember the name of Wassyl, our hero, and when we mention his name, what do you feel? Thank you, Volodymyr, because 6 years ago, when Volodymyr approached me and said that we need to do something, so that was 6 years ago, so that was the first marathon organized back then. In 6 years' times, there were lots of friends of Wassyl, musicians, conductors, composers. A lot of events were organized. This year, when we are fighting for our freedom, and this marathon was more important than ever. People who came to listen to classic music, and when they heard the orchestra that was playing Червона Калина or the other patriotic songs and the hymn of Ukraine that is usually played in church. So that was really solemn moment. It's been 6 years since Wassyl died tragically during the war. And for me, it wasn't easy because I have to be honest with you. I always felt a little bit not confident about myself. Like, why did Wassyl join the army? He had super career. He had wonderful life abroad. Ukraine needed him. And I always tortured myself with these questions. But since the war broke out, I finally understood what Wassyl was trying to come across and convene to me. Because thousands of people went to fight for Ukraine. When Wassyl joined Armed Forces of Ukraine back in 2014, there were not so many volunteers. But Wassyl was of artistic nature. He was a celebrity, and when he joined armed forces, it was weird. It was not typical. Now we have thousands of people who joined armed forces, and regardless of what they did in peace times. In 2014, when Wassyl was singing on the stage in Lyon, he had the flag of Ukraine. Back then, it looked exotic and not understandable, not well perceived by everybody. But now, since the war broke out, people, artists, singers, when they perform on stage, they have the flag of Ukraine, they sing the national anthem of Ukraine. So in New York, in Paris, in major cities of the world. So this is the powerful front in music that we formed, and we have millions of supporters worldwide, and it's very important. It's unprecedented. I understand why this mission of Wassyl was important and why his life was important. I'm grateful to Lviv Philharmonic, which became national. It became national after Wassyl passed, and it was named after late Miroslav Skorik. And the geography of marathon this year is pretty broad. We started it in Lviv National Philharmonic, then the continuation was in Switzerland. The violinist Bogdana Pimnenko organized the concert in memory of Wassyl Slipak. Yesterday, a few concerts were organized in Lviv, and tonight we will have a concert in Paris in the Cultural Center. It's also going to be in memory of Wassyl Slipak. There will be pianists performing Talanets, Zaitseva. They will be performing Ukrainian and European program. And there will be another event in New York soon. This marathon is open, and whoever wants to join are welcome. And it's really important to fight on this cultural front as well. Denis Litvinenko, who is going to speak after me, he organized the concert in Garrison Church, named after St. Paul and Peter. That was Bach's music, sonnets, the cello music. So they are very difficult technically, but his interpretation as composer of the famous song Pline Kacha, which is the anthem of our sorrow and tragedy. All of us contributed, all of us made this event happen, made this marathon happen. Our warriors are fighting in the front line. We are fighting here in the art line. This war is not easy. They are trying to destroy us, to exterminate us as a nation, but we have to stand strong and we have to keep developing and be part of a civilized world. Now I'd like to invite Denis Litvinenko, soloist, celloist of Lviv National Philharmonic. What is your role in this marathon? I will quote Churchill. If we do not have culture, what are we fighting for? The Ukrainian culture, unlike the culture of other countries, is very powerful. Um, This culture was being destroyed for generations. Some nations try to steal our culture, but they failed. For me, this marathon is very important each and every year. It signifies that we remember our culture. Um, I did not know Wassyl Slipak personally. My parents knew him personally, but I knew him from YouTube. For me, he was a role model. He was a good actor. His voice was fantastic. He was one of the pillars of Ukrainian culture in Europe. He had a wonderful career in France, in Paris. And then one day he decided to join the armed forces and he sacrificed his life. Therefore, we are obliged to remember his sacrifice and send the message to the world because he is our culture, he is our national identity. And I'm happy that I can be involved in this wonderful marathon every year. Volodymyr, my question for you is the following. Philharmonic organizes this marathon since the first year. What does that mean for Philharmonic itself? For us, it's first of all great honor to commemorate such personality. But historically speaking, the career of Wassyl Slipak, his debut started on the stage of Lviv Philharmonic. That's why it's an honor for us to continue his cultural career, and we need to hold this front because we are responsible for our cultural front for Ukraine, and we will be fighting for it forever, and the name of Wassyl Slipak will always be a good example for us. Not only Ukrainians remember Wassyl Slipak. You already mentioned that the world joined in this marathon, but could you brief us more on that? When we are talking about the beginning of this full-scale invasion of Russian aggressor of Ukraine, I received tons of calls from Wassyl's friends who were composers, conductors, musicians. They organized charity concerts, they gathered money, donations, and they passed the donations over to Ukraine. That was their contribution because they understood what Wassyl was trying what message he was trying to convey, because he was a happy person. At one moment, he became the person who had very clear political position. Back then, they were not capable to understand him, but when they saw the images of bombardment of peaceful cities of Ukraine, they understood what Wassyl was fighting for. Therefore, they joined in, they contributed not only to commemorate their friend but also to help Ukraine, and it became massive contribution, massive event. Unfortunately, every day young talented people die in the front line, and we have to remember them all. We must remember them all. We are supported by the world, but we have to do all we can so that the world is not tired, it does not have this fatigue of Ukraine. So we cannot fall into despair. We cannot be hysterical. We should not be afraid. And if you remember Wassyl's interviews back in 2014, he kept saying, we cannot get depressed. We have to stand strong. We have to be tuned in. And we have to fight this cruel and violent war. I know that the money gathered is going to be used for charity. All money that we collect, the marathon is not over yet. Our decision is that because Lviv Philharmonic is helping traditionally to the 18th brigade. By the way, you can come and listen to some of the concerts. You know that Philharmonic is like a headquarters. So there is music on the stage, but outside the stage there are boxes with equipment that is sent to the east. So that's why we are going to donate money to the 80th Lviv Separate Mobile Guards Air Assault Brigade for the purchase of cars and thermal drones. Marathon is just small part of the project. Philharmonic became the place of the fight. You are welcome to join the concerts. You will see that on the stage there is the concert, but outside the stage, behind the curtains, we are helping the army. If Wassyl Slipak was here with us today and he witnessed this full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, what do you think he would have said? I think he was ready. If you read his interviews in 2014, he spoke out loud about this invasion. Unfortunately, not everybody heard him. Back then, they did not announce the war. We did not announce the war to Russia. And I think that we wouldn't see Wassyl here. He wouldn't be here. But if Wassyl was with us alive, he wouldn't be here with us. He would be in the front line, in the hottest spots of Ukraine. He would have been fighting in the most challenging places. And his friends with who he fought in 2014 and 2016, and I stay in touch with his friends, so his friends are now in the front line. Thank you very much. Our guests were Volodymyr Syvokhip, Director General of Lviv National Philharmonic, Oris Slipak, brother of Wassyl Slipak, founder of Wassyl Slipak Foundation, and Denis Litvinenko, soloist and celloist of Lviv National Philharmonic. Thank you very much. This is all we have for you for today. Stay with us and follow our announcements on Media Center Ukraine. And we approach our victory.